And welcome back to Detroit's only nightly political talk show. You're watching The Pulse here on Fox 2. And joining us to talk about working with the incoming Trump administration, Democratic Congresswoman Haley Stevens and Troy Mayor Ethan Baker, a Republican. We thank you both for being here today. It's always good to see you. Okay, so hope is not lost. We're sitting at a table with a Republican mayor who runs a nonpartisan shop in Troy, but nonetheless a Republican, and Congresswoman Haley Stevens, a proud Democrat. You two work well together pretty often, and
we've been doing it for a while together, you know, working together. Mayor, Congresswoman, getting them appropriated funds. He tells me what they need. I pick up the phone. I try and make it happen.
Let me ask you this, though. When you look at the contention of this last election between, and let's just place the blame where it belongs, on the campaigns, okay? I don't know if it was the candidates. The campaigns pitted two groups against each other, Democrats and Republicans. The country's never felt so divided in recent history. Is it real, or is this something you think that was contrived and made up by the campaigns to make us feel that we had to vote for one group or the other?
Emotions are running high. Politics is deeply personal. It also feels way too tribal right now. It's really interesting because week after week, when I leave Oakland County and go to the nation's capital on behalf of our district, I'm there with 434 other members of Congress. Every zip code around this country is represented, and it's an inspiring thing. I have relationships and friendships and collegiality with colleagues from Tennessee to Texas, California, Maine, even Alaska. And we're voting on things that pertain not only to us here in Michigan, but are also going to affect the nation. And so those relationships really matter. But then when you get online, you know, someone says something, maybe your heart starts beating a little quicker.
Yep.
You know, there's rage politics, there's 24/7 cable news, there's all these podcasts, and we're in a robust exchange of ideas. But somewhere down the line, it's broken down because people make decisions, and when you don't agree, it can feel like a cut.
So, Mayor Ethan Baker, when you look at social media and then you look at real life, and I'm going to call it what it is, social media is a slice of what the real world is like. But the real world is much more, I would like to think, civil and normal than what we see in social media. Would you agree with that take?
I totally agree with that. I think that's one of the big issues, is that people don't really understand that we're all human beings, and I've talked about this a lot. The human nature is we want to get along, we want to do things together, but, you know, for example, the Congresswoman and I, we do have different political parties, for sure, but we see each other as Haley and Ethan, and we know what each other's strengths are. I know exactly what she does for the city of Troy when she's in Washington, and I think she knows what we're doing in Troy to try to help support her, and that's the things we focus on in our relationship, and that's what makes us not fall into tribes and get angry all the time.
Let's talk about Trump, and then we'll talk about Kamala Harris. I want to begin with VP Harris. She put out a video, and some people are calling it cringe. Other people are calling it sad. But the bottom line is it was filled with platitudes and superlatives about this past campaign and what we're fighting for. Congresswoman and Mayor, if we could just watch that video together and tell me what you think about what you see here. Kamala Harris, our VP.
I just have to remind you, don't you ever let anybody take your power from you. You have the same power that you did before November 5th. And you have the same purpose that you did. And you have the same ability to engage and inspire. So don't ever let anybody or any circumstance take your power from you.
Okay, we have it on a few sources that say that some campaign folks who are still with the VP encouraged her not to do a message like this, saying she already did her message after the concession. What do you make of what she's saying in this video?
Well, look, I think for anyone who's feeling a little lost or frustrated after the election because maybe they worked so hard on Kamala Harris's campaign. I know I was right there with her. We had such a blast every time she'd come to Michigan. She was in Royal Oak, she was in Waterford, you know, Detroit every time you turned around. And you do have to focus on community. You do have to go within community. And I think what she's saying is, hey, don't lose sight of what it means to be involved. You know, that's something that people can take away from my relationship with Mayor Baker here. You know, we're focused on the power of community and bettering neighborhoods and solving problems for constituents, coming together. So, yes, the big presidency and the whole nation and all these federal policies and groupthink and this and that, you know, volunteer at a local food bank. We've got some amazing food banks here in Metro Detroit. Show up at a city council meeting just to listen, right, and hear what's going on. Maybe get involved in a committee.
Take part in politics. All politics is local, and you're saying do what you can do locally. Mayor Ethan Baker, we're just less than 2 months away from Trump and Vance taking office.
Yeah.
How hopeful are you in this country to see congresswomen like the one that you see here to work well together with this Trump-Vance administration? Are you hopeful?
Oh, sure. I think the Congresswoman's got a track record of working hard for her district and for the people of the state of Michigan, and I think that that's the same whether it's, you know, John James or Debbie Dingell or Lisa McClain, or those are the ones around here, obviously. They're going to work to do everything they can to ensure that their districts are thriving and that we're doing okay here in Michigan. So I am hopeful about that aspect of it. I know the Congresswoman 4 years ago, she put a resolution to talk about, you know, no matter what happens in this election back in 2020, we're all going to move forward as a country and do what's right. Yeah. And, you know, that, yeah, her party won at that time, so it probably didn't get as much attention.
You might be the only person who knows that I wrote
I remember it. I'm with you for it.
Resolution.
But that's what she's about, and that's what I'm about. So I know that with the right people, we're going to be fine.
Do we have all the right people? Because the divide that we saw, even within the Republican Party, between the old guard of the GOP and the MAGA Republicans, pick a side. It seems like everyone's kind of picked the Trump side in order to get his blessing, kiss the ring, and move forward. But from the Democratic point of view, what are we not seeing that we should know about when it comes to the divide within the Democratic Party? Is it a fractured party or is it cohesive?
Well, you know what's really interesting as we look to form the new government and we see this new administration coming together, we also have a new Congress coming in. And they get sworn in on January 3rd, and it is a 2-seat majority for the Republicans. And all of us are saying, you know what, to move anything forward, we're going to have to work together. We're going to have to, you know, compromise, because when you're just 2 votes shy, and what we saw certainly with the Republican majority this year, where they ousted Kevin McCarthy and there was a lot of infighting, you know, we still haven't passed the budget for next year. And all the appropriations that we want to see get done. And I think with regard to the Democrats, you know, we because we're, you know, in the position that we're in, where we are thrilled to see Alyssa Slotkin going into the U.S. Senate, Andy Kim. These are new Democratic senators, but we lost the Senate. We didn't fully take back the House after 4 years.
Was this a referendum on the Democratic Party in the way they were moving their party forward?
You know, look, I think that across the world we saw that these were change elections. And I've been doing a lot of thinking along those lines, particularly, as you mentioned, 2020. You know, had we had a Democrat president in 2020, what would the outcome have been like that? You know, we really firmly believe in what we're campaigning on. I'm in a bipartisan paid leave working group. Right. One of my colleagues from Oklahoma, a Republican, I pulled her aside. I said, Stephanie, I still want to do this bipartisan paid leave initiative. And she said, I do too. And I said, and I'm feeling good about this president, partly because Trump worked on paid leave, so did Biden. That's one, you know, people aren't talking about that, but that's something that we're working on.
People aren't talking about it. The media has a responsibility to report on things like that all the time. And I'm going to go ahead and take some of the shoulder on, I'm not the media. We're not a monolith. MSNBC and Fox News, that's not us. But I do have to say that I hear often from congressional leaders and mayors and others who say, how come you don't report on when there's bipartisan bills where we're working together? Is it the responsibility of the media to do this correctly in order for people to see this picture accurately? Mayor Baker?
Well, I would hope, because who else is going to do it otherwise? So many people depend on the media and expect the media to be, whether you call it the fourth estate or another branch of our government. If they're not doing their job and being transparent with the good stuff that is happening, the media is playing a role in why we're so miserable.
MSNBC and the other networks that are out there, they have a responsibility to do an interview even when it's not going to be pithy, right? When it's going to be cooperation. They need to tell that story, yes?
So I'll tell you, when we were passing the CHIPS and Science Act, I was doing a ton of media around that because I was on the conference committee. It was a passion topic of mine, helped pass the bill through the Science Committee. And I'll never forget, I was doing an interview on a nation cable-wide station, and they had to say, but no, aren't you worried about the infighting around this? And they were just looking for the drama anywhere. And I'm trying to say, we got a bipartisan conversation conference committee. We're going to get this CHIPS bill done.
Congresswoman Haley Stevens, we thank you for the work that you do with your Republican and Democratic colleagues. Mayor Ethan Baker, the same can be said for you. Thank you both for joining us here. And it is our responsibility, and so many of you turn to local news because you know we can get it right, and we will every time here. All right, Thanksgiving can always bring out the political divide in your family, but we're asking the experts about how to handle such a dinner party with such a heated race. Dr. Rose Moten is next.